The invoice tears in half. One clean rip. The pieces drift to the concrete floor like they weigh nothing. Every person inside the garage stops moving. A teenager near Thespian rack slowly raises his phone. An elderly woman forgets to breathe. And in the doorway, soccer cleats still on, shin guards caked with mud. An 11-year-old girl watches her father's face and reads what the adults cannot say. Sterling Ashcroft smooths his jacket and smiles the way men smile when they've decided the room belongs to them. Garrett Holloway doesn't move, doesn't raise his voice. He says 7 words quietly and Sterling walks out laughing. The convoy disappears. Dust settles. But less than 24 hours later, the billionaire's own father will drive 3 hours alone with a leather envelope. And before that morning ends, $19 million will change hands. Why would one of America's wealthiest men reward the mechanician's son just humiliated? Stay with this. The answer will change everything you think you know about wealth, character, and real power. The compressor coughs twice before it catches. Garrett Holloway is already on his back under a lifted F-150 when the first customer pulls in. The fluorescent lights overhead still flickering. That slow, undecided flicker that happens every morning like they're deciding whether today is worth the effort. Garrett decides for them. He slides out, checks the caliper, wipes his hands on a red shop rag, and moves to the register before the customer reaches the door. That is who he is, a man who moves toward the work before Thurk has to ask. His garage sits at the edge of a 2-stoplight town in rural Pennsylvania. The building is worn. The sign above the bay doors faded to ghost letters, but inside, every tool hangs on a labelet hook. Every part is binned. Every customer file goes back a decade. People drive past newer shops to come here, not for convenience, because Garrett Holloway has never handed someone a bill that surprised them. If the repair costs $199, the invoice reads $199. No hidden fees. No inflated labor. No parts swapped with cheaper versions and the same number on the receipt. If you are new here, welcome and hit subscribe, because every week we bring real stories about real people, and this one goes somewhere you will not expect. That Tuesday moves like any other until the sound changes. 3 black SUVs roll into the lot in a tight line. Spotless. Moving with deliberate slowness that is not caution, it is performance, Sterling Ashcroft steps out. Business magazine covers, cable news segments, a face that runs under headlines about disruption and imminence. He moves like every surface beneath him is already out. His SUV overheated 20 miles out. 17 calls. Every nearby dealership refused the job. Someone gave them one name. Garrett checks the vehicle without being asked. Opens the hood. Listens the way you listen when you know that machines like people tell you everything if you stay quiet long enough. Thermostat failure, cracked coolant housing, 3 hours of work. By 6 that evening the engine runs cleaner than it did before the breakdown. Garrett prints the invoice and sets it on the counter. Sterling picks it up, reads it once, then reads it again. A slow smile spreads across his face, not the smile of a satisfied customer. Something calculated sits behind it. And Garrett Holloway has no idea what is about to happen inside his own garage. Sterling holds the invoice like evidence. $199. He reads it the way someone delivers a punchline at another man's expense. The teenager by the supply rack stops scrolling. The woman in the waiting chairs puts down her magazine. 2 men in work boots exchange a look. Garrett keeps his voice level. He explains every item, the thermostat, the housing unit, the labor rate he has charged every customer for 12 years. Sterling cuts him off. You people always think hard work makes you valuable. Room doesn't go quiet. It goes silent. Quiet is an absence. Silenti's a presence nobody dares disturb. The door opens. Brenna Holloway steps in from soccer practice. 11 years old, shin guard still on, grass on her knees. She reads the room the way children raised in hard circumstances always read a room completely and immediately without a word spoken. Sterling sees her. He does not stop. Maybe if your father understood business instead of fixing rusted trucks. A pause. He wouldn't look like this. Brenna's chin drops to her chest. Garrett's hands close at his sides. The knuckles go white. Then slowly they open. "I fixed your vehicle," he says. "My invoice is fair. Whether you respect me is your choice." Sterling tears the invoice, drops the pieces, walks out. Garrett crouches, picks up the torn paper, carries it to the trash, the act of a man who decided long ago that dignity doesn't need a crowd. What no one knows is that $199 was already allocated, going toward the hydraulic seal on the floor lift that has lost pressure for 6 weeks. Without it, Garrett cannot safely raise a vehicle. Can it work? Everything behind that number, rent, Brenna's fees, a mortgage 4 months behind, begins to fall. He makes dinner, laughs at something Brenna says. After she sleeps, he draws a line through $199 on his legal pad and stares at what remains. 400 miles away, Sterling tells the story at dinner like Ammon, expecting applause. Conrad Ashcroft sets down his fork. "He fixed your vehicle?" "Yes, correctly, completely." "Then why didn't you pay him?" Sterling shrugs. "It wasn't about the money." Conrad folds his napkin, stands, walks out. By morning, investigators will already be working. What they uncover will not just be about a mechanic in Pennsylvania. It will be about Sterling himself, and Conrad is not going to like a single word. The report lands on Conrad's desk at 6:47 in the morning. He reads it twice before touching his coffee. On paper, Garrett Holloway looks like a man slowly losing. Late mortgage, aging equipment, a business account that rarely holds to a week's of reserves. But the investigators went past the paperwork. 9 years ago, without a word to anyone, Garrett began repairing vehicles for military veterans at no charge. A veteran came in shorthand. Garrett filed the job as a shop loss. He did it again the next month. 41 documented cases, and the real number was here because Garrett kept no record. He simply did it. 3 winters ago, a school district called at 11 p.m. A bus wouldn't start. A snowstorm was 4 hours out and 47 children depended on that route. Garrett drove out in freezing temperatures, worked under a portable light, finished at 3:15 in the morning, refused payment, and was back before 6. The district sent a thank you card. He used it as a bookmark. 4 elderly customers on fixed incomes received invoices marked as shop errors, no payment required. None ever knew. He absorbed every dollar. Conrad closes the first file. Opens the second. Contractors paid 60 cents on the dollar. Suppliers locked into agreements designed to destroy their other client relationships within 18 months. 3 whistleblowers. 3 settlements. 1 Ohio manufacturer closed after Sterling replicated their process overseas and dropped them without the required notice. The owner was 61. He never opened another business. Conrad sits at his desk until the light shifts from black to pale morning gold. 50 years building something. And through all of it, he believed the most important thing was not the revenue. It was what their revenue revealed about the man behind the decisions. He opens his safe. Behind the portfolio sits a leather binder, a private trust he established 23 years ago with one mandate: find Americans whose quiet integrity holds communitistogler and invest in them. 11 times. A teacher. A firefighter. A woman who ran a food pantry from her garage for 16 years without once asking for recognition. Garrett Holloway's name first appeared in the trust's records 4 years ago, came back the next year, and the year after that. Conrad picks up his car keys. Not his driver, just his keys. He walks through the quiet house, climbs into a plain sedan, and pulls through the gate alone. 3 hours of highway. A leather envelope on the seat beside him, and a certified check inside for an amount that will make Garrett Holloway read the number 3 times before he trusts his own eyes. The garage is still dark when Conrad arrives. His plain sedan sits in the far corner of the lot, engine off. He has been there long enough that the windows have fogged slightly at head corners. Garrett sees it when he unlocks the bay door. He almost keeps walking. Then the driver's door opens. Conrad Ashcroft is 73 years old. He moves like a man who spent his first 2 decades doing physical work and his last 50 wishing he had never stopped. No assistant. No security. Nobody standing a respectful distance behind him. Just an old man in plain clothes carrying a leather envelope. Garrett recognizes the face in the suspended second a brain takes when something impossible walks toward you in ordinary clothes. Conrad speaks first. I'm not here to explain my son. I am here because what happened in this garage was wrong, and I am part of the reason it happened. Garrett says nothing. May I come in? They stand inside while Conrad explains the trust. 23 years old. One mandate. Find Americans whose quiet integrity holds communities together and invest in them. Garrett listens without a word. When Conrad finishes, he places the envelope on the workbench. Garrett opens it. His eyes move across the number once, twice. A third time slowly, like a man checking for a misprint he is hopping to find. $19 million. The garage goes completely still. This is not charity, Conrad says. Every veteran you repaired without charge. Every school bus in a snowstorm. Every elderly customer who never knew you covered their bill. You have been investing in this community for years. This is the return. Garrett's hand presses flat on the workbench. The door opens behind them. Brenna stands in the frame, backpack over one shoulder, looking from her father to the old man to the check on the workbench. Her mouth opens, nothing comes out. Then a shadow crosses the glass of the front door. Sterling Ashcroft stands in the parking lot, watching. He came on a message from his father's assistant, just a location and a time. No other details. He had no idea what he would find. Now he knows. For the first time in a life built entirely on leverage and advantage, Sterling has nothing to say. No counter, no angle, no move. Conrad turns slowly toward his son through the glass. The look on the old man's face is not anger. It is something much heavier than anger. And Sterling Ashcroft, who has walked away from every consequence his wealth could buy, is about to face the one thing money cannot touch. Conrad steps outside. He does not raise his voice. Wealth without character, he tells his son, is just failure wearing an expensive suit. Sterling stands in the morning light of a small Pennsylvania parking lot and receives the one thing his fortune never protected him from: shame. He walks back into the garage. Faces Garrett directly. The words come out unpolished and unrehearsed, which is the only reason they land. He apologizes. Garrett nods once, not because Sterling earned forgiveness, but because Brenna is watching. And Garrett decided long ago that the lessons she carries into her life will be written by his choices, not his wounds. The money changes everything and nothing. The new lift goes in first, then a second bay, then a third. Stafford be young apprentices from the county technical school who remind Garrett of himself at 19. He establishes a scholarship in his wife's name. He expands the veterans program, gives it an official name. Thurk itself stays exactly the same. Brenna goes to college without a single dollar of debt. The town never stops talking about that week, not because of Thechek. Because of the 7 words Garrett said to a man who tore his invoice in half and expected to leave him with nothing. Nobody recorded what those words were exactly, but everyone who stood inside that garage agrees, whatever Garrett said, it was the most expensive sentence Sterling Ashcroft ever heard. Money can buy influence, attention, even power, but it cannot purchase the respect earned by a life lived honestly. Sometimes the smallest unpaid debt reveals the greatest poverty, not in a wallet, but in the human heart. If this story stopped you, drop a comment below. Tell us, what would you have done in Garrett's position? Would you have held your ground, or would you have said something different? This channel is built for stories like this one. Real people, real character, real moments that remind us what actually matters. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications, because every single week this channel brings you another story that will stop you in your tracks, and you do not want to miss one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you know someone whose quiet integrity never gets the recognition it deserves, drop their name in the comments below, because that kind of person deserves to be seen. Subscribe to Echo's Unfold TV channel and turn on notifications, because there are more stories coming. Stories about ordinary people who did extraordinary things in the quiet. Stories that remind us what strength actually looks like when it is not performing for anyone. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And drop your thoughts in the comments. Your words inspire the next person who reads them, and that matters more than you know. This story is over, but the next one is already waiting.